June 13th, 2022, a date that forever changed the lives of a Houston family. What began as an ordinary evening for a mother and her 3 children evolved into a nightmare that would shake a community to its core. Kylie Sorrels was doing her best. Like countless single mothers across America, she balanced work, parenting, and the unpredictable nature of daily life while raising 3 daughters in Houston, Texas. Her modest apartment on Oxford Street in Houston's Heights neighborhood wasn't extravagant, but she worked hard to make it a loving home. At the center of this family was 9-year-old Kylie Sorrels, a 4th grader at Windsor Village Elementary School, where teachers described her as bright, engaged, and always ready with a smile. Her natural warmth drew people in, whether in the classroom or on the basketball court. She wasn't just another student. She was the girl who made others feel welcome, who encouraged her teammates even when games didn't go their way. Kylie had this energy about her, recalled one of her teachers. She approached everything with such enthusiasm, whether it was schoolwork or helping younger students. She was the kind of child who made you look forward to coming to work. This enthusiasm extended beyond school walls. Kylie had discovered her passion through the Houston Police Department's Police Activities League program, an initiative designed to build positive relationships between youth and law enforcement through sports and mentorship. On the basketball court, she found her element. Not necessarily the tallest player, but often the most determined, Kylie approached each game with focus and joy. At home, Kylie embraced her role as big sister to her siblings, aged 7 and 1. Neighbors often spotted the trio outside their apartment, with Kylie naturally taking charge, organizing games, settling disputes, and watching over her younger sisters with a maturity beyond her years. When not occupied with school or basketball, Kylie found creative expression through dance. Her TikTok videos showcased her natural rhythm and infectious joy, recordings that now serve as precious memories for those who loved her. Kylie worked tirelessly to provide stability for her children. Despite financial constraints and the inherent challenges of single parenthood, she maintained an environment where her daughters felt secure and loved. The apartment might have been modest, but it echoed with laughter, music, and the sounds of a family navigating life together. What wasn't visible in those everyday moments were the tensions bubbling beneath the surface. Kylie had recently ended an 8-month relationship with 22-year-old Jeremiah Jones. The breakup, initiated by Kylie approximately 2 months before that fateful June evening, had not gone smoothly. Text messages and phone records would later reveal a pattern of increasing hostility from Jones. What began as uncomfortable conversations had escalated to explicit threats. Kylie had contacted local authorities on multiple occasions, reporting Jones's behavior and expressing growing concern about her family's safety. "I told them he was dangerous," Kylie would later recount from her hospital bed. "I told them he had threatened us." Despite these reports, the system designed to protect vulnerable families had fallen short. The warnings Kylie provided in the weeks leading up to that June night highlight gaps in how domestic threats are addressed, gaps that would have devastating consequences. As the family settled in for a quiet movie night that June evening, none of them could have anticipated how their lives would change within hours. The apartment on Oxford Street, once filled with a child's laughter and the everyday sounds of family life, would soon become the scene of an unthinkable tragedy. Before we continue with what happened that terrible night, if you're finding this story important, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring attention to cases like Kylie's that deserve to be told. Hit that notification bell to stay updated on our true crime documentaries that examine not just the crimes themselves, but the human stories behind them. Share your thoughts in the comments if you've noticed similar systemic failures in cases you followed. Now, to understand why this tragedy occurred, we need to examine the man who would forever alter the course of this family's history. Jeremiah Jones, a young man with a troubling past and an increasingly volatile present. At 22 years old, Jeremiah Jones already had accumulated a substantial criminal record that stretched back through his late teens. His history revealed a consistent pattern of disregard for the law and escalating serious offenses. Court documents show multiple arrests for theft, burglary, and trespassing, beginning with minor incidents that gradually progressed to more significant crimes. By his early 20s, Jones had advanced to charges including evading arrest and making threats. Those who knew him described a young man who displayed little remorse for his actions and showed minimal interest in rehabilitation programs offered during his brief periods of incarceration. Law enforcement officials noted that Jones had associations with local gang activity, though the extent of his involvement remained unclear. What was evident was his comfort with accessing and using firearms, despite legal prohibitions due to his previous convictions. Former neighbors from his childhood recalled a troubled youth who frequently engaged in confrontations and displayed difficulty managing anger from an early age. School records indicated numerous disciplinary incidents, with teachers noting his struggles with authority figures and tendency to respond aggressively when challenged. Jones and Kylie Sorrels met through mutual acquaintances in the fall of 2021. Friends recalled that Jones initially presented himself as charming and attentive. He quickly integrated himself into Britney's life, spending increasing amounts of time at her apartment and with her children. The relationship moved rapidly, with Jones establishing a presence in the household within weeks. Text messages recovered from Britney's phone revealed a relationship that started with affectionate exchanges but gradually shifted in tone. By the third month, communication patterns showed Jones's increasing demands for Britney's time and attention. What Britney originally interpreted as devotion revealed itself as possessiveness. Jones began monitoring her social media accounts and questioning her about male friends or coworkers. He expressed jealousy over her time spent with family members and displayed hostility toward her, maintaining independent friendships. 8 months into their relationship, Britney made the decision to end things with Jones. Their final weeks together in April 2022 were marked by arguments about his controlling behavior. The breakup, finalized in mid-April, appeared to trigger an acceleration in Jones's antagonistic behavior rather than bringing relief. Former partners of Jones, who came forward after his arrest, described similar experiences of controlling behavior that evolved into physical intimidation. These accounts established a troubling consistency in his approach to relationships. The progression typically began with excessive texting and demands to know his partner's whereabouts. This would advance to isolating behaviors, criticizing friends and family members, creating conflict before social events, and making his disapproval known when plans didn't include him. With Britney, neighbors had witnessed heated arguments outside her apartment on multiple occasions. Several reported hearing Jones yelling threats and observing him preventing her from closing her own front door during disputes. In the month following their separation, Jones had been spotted in the apartment complex parking lot, watching Britney's unit, despite having no legitimate reason to be there. Houston Police Department records showed 2 separate calls from Britney's residence regarding unwanted visits from Jones. On both occasions, officers arrived after Jones had already departed, resulting in incident reports but no arrests. These encounters represented the visible portion of what investigators would later discover was a sustained campaign of intimidation. The most alarming aspect of Jones's case emerged when investigators examined his legal status at the time of the shooting. Court records revealed that on June 13, 2022, Jones was simultaneously out on 5 separate bonds for pending criminal cases. These bonds pertained to charges including unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, theft, evading arrest, and most concerning, felony possession of a firearm. The most recent of these releases had occurred just weeks before the shooting, despite his accumulating record of non-compliance with previous bond conditions. Each new arrest should have triggered reviews of his prior release conditions, yet Jones remained free in the community. Documentation showed missed court appearances that had not resulted in bond revocation, and violations of court-ordered restrictions that went effectively unaddressed by the system. A review of his case management revealed that Jones had been assigned to multiple probation officers due to staffing changes, creating gaps in supervision. Electronic monitoring that had been ordered as a condition of one release was never properly implemented, allowing Jones unrestricted movement throughout Houston. In the weeks leading up to June 13th, Brittany had documented an intensifying series of threats from Jones. Her phone contained text messages where Jones explicitly stated his refusal to accept the end of their relationship. Messages recovered from May 2022 included direct statements such as, "You think you can just throw me away? And nobody else gets to have you if I can't." Brittany had shown these messages to family members, expressing growing concern about Jones's state of mind. Phone records confirmed 7 calls from Jones to Brittany on June 6th, exactly 1 week before the shooting. During one of these calls, according to Brittany's later testimony, Jones had issued his most direct threat that he would make her sorry if she didn't reconcile with him. Brittany had filed a report with Houston Police Department on June 7th, providing screenshots of threatening messages and detailing Jones's increasingly aggressive behavior. The report was assigned for follow-up, but no protective measures had been implemented before the events of June 13th unfolded. The circumstances surrounding Jones's freedom to commit such a violent act highlight significant gaps in the criminal justice system's handling of repeat offenders and domestic violence cases. An audit conducted after the shooting revealed that Jones's case had encountered nearly every potential breakdown point in the system. His history displayed clear escalation patterns that went unaddressed. Risk assessment tools used by courts had failed to properly weight his accumulating charges when making bond decisions. Communication gaps between different agencies meant that prosecutors making recommendations on new charges were sometimes working without complete information about pending cases. The specialized domestic violence unit that should have prioritized Brittany's reports operated with significant backlogs, delaying assessment of cases that showed danger markers. Resource limitations meant that monitoring of bond conditions was often cursory, with in-person check-ins replaced by phone calls. The high volume of cases moving through the system had created assembly line processing where individual circumstances received minimal scrutiny, allowing Jones to exploit these systemic weaknesses repeatedly. Monday, June 13, 2022, began, like many others, in Houston's Heights neighborhood. The temperature had climbed to 95 degrees that afternoon, a typical summer day in Texas that had residents seeking refuge in air-conditioned homes as evening approached. On Oxford Street, the Sorrels family apartment offered such sanctuary. By 10:30 p.m., the neighborhood had settled into its nighttime routine. Most families had completed dinner, children were tucked into bed, and the usual sounds of daytime activity had diminished to the occasional passing car or distant conversation. The Sorrels apartment displayed a soft glow from the television as Brittany and her children found comfort in a familiar evening ritual, watching a movie together before bedtime. 9-year-old Kylie and her 7-year-old sister had built a makeshift fort of blankets and pillows in the living room. The baby, just 1 year old, had already fallen asleep in a portable crib nearby. Brittany had prepared snacks and created what should have been an ordinary, peaceful family evening. Phone records would later show that Jeremiah Jones had called Brittany's phone 6 times between 8:45 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. Brittany had answered only the first call, which lasted less than a minute before she terminated the conversation. The subsequent 5 calls went unanswered, going directly to voicemail. A cousin of Brittany's, who had visited earlier that evening but left around 9:30 p.m., later told investigators that Brittany had seemed anxious after receiving a call. She had checked the locks on the doors twice before settling in with her children, a detail that suggested she sensed potential danger. Security cameras from a business across the street captured Jones's vehicle circling the block 3 times between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. At 10:32 p.m., the same camera recorded a figure matching Jones's description, approaching the apartment building on foot. A neighbor from the adjacent unit later confirmed hearing a rattling doorknob at approximately 10:35 p.m., followed by the sound of the door opening. This testimony aligned with investigators' determination that Jones had found the door unlocked or had a key from his previous relationship with Brittany. According to Brittany's subsequent statement to police, the family's quiet evening shattered when Jones pushed open the apartment door without knocking. He entered with obvious anger, immediately demanding to know why Brittany wasn't answering his calls. The children, startled by the sudden intrusion, remained frozen in their blanket fort. Jones ignored them initially, focusing his rage on Brittany. Witnesses in neighboring apartments reported hearing a male voice shouting, followed by sounds of items being thrown or knocked over. Jones first demanded Brittany's phone, snatching it from her hand when she hesitated. He then moved to the television mounted on the wall, claiming it belonged to him. In a display of dominance and rage, he physically tore the TV from its mounting bracket, damaging both the wall and the device. Throughout these initial moments, Brittany attempted to keep the situation calm, aware of her children's presence and growing fear. She asked Jones repeatedly to leave, telling him they could discuss any property disputes another time. Her pleas went unheeded as Jones continued his aggressive behavior. What happened next transformed an already frightening domestic dispute into a horrific crime. After damaging property and verbally abusing Brittany, Jones shifted his attention to the bedroom where Kylie had retreated during the confrontation. According to the official police report, Jones followed Kylie into the bedroom. Brittany, sensing escalating danger, attempted to place herself between Jones and her daughter. In that moment, Jones drew a handgun from his waistband. He fired first at Brittany, striking her in the shoulder. The impact knocked her backward, temporarily immobilizing her. With Brittany no longer able to intervene, Jones turned the weapon on 9-year-old Kylie and fired twice, striking her in the head. The 7-year-old sister witnessed the shooting from the doorway of the bedroom, but managed to escape Jones's notice as he immediately fled the apartment after firing the shots. The entire deadly sequence, from entry to exit, had taken less than 10 minutes. At 10:46 p.m., multiple 911 calls reported gunshots at the Oxford Street address. Houston Police Department dispatched units arrived at the scene by 10:53 p.m., finding the apartment door ajar and Brittany conscious but severely injured, attempting to tend to her unresponsive daughter. Medical personnel arrived minutes later, immediately recognizing the severity of Kylie's injuries. They initiated emergency protocols, rushing her to Memorial Hermann Hospital, while additional medical teams treated Brittany's gunshot wound. Despite the medical team's urgent efforts, Kylie's injuries proved fatal. She was pronounced deceased at the hospital at 11:26 p.m. Brittany, though seriously injured, remained stable and was able to provide officers with a clear identification of Jones as the shooter. The cousin who had visited earlier that evening returned immediately upon hearing about the shooting and provided corroborating details about Jones's threatening behavior in recent weeks. She confirmed Brittany had expressed fear about Jones's increasing hostility. Neighbors from 3 separate units reported hearing the argument, followed by distinct gunshots. One neighbor described seeing a young man matching Jones's description running from the building immediately after the shots were fired, entering a dark-colored sedan before speeding away. A resident from the ground floor had encountered Jones in the stairwell moments before the shooting and noticed his agitated state. This witness later helped police confirm Jones's identity through photo identification. The story of what happened to Kylie Sorrels and her mother represents a devastating failure of systems meant to protect vulnerable families. If you found yourself moved by this account, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement helps bring attention to these critical issues and supports our team's continued reporting on cases that demand public awareness. We also encourage you to share this video with others who care about domestic violence prevention and justice system reform. The comment section below is open for your thoughts on how communities can better protect children in volatile domestic situations. Hit the notification bell to stay informed about the next part of this documentary, where we'll examine how law enforcement tracked down Jones in the hours following this terrible crime. Within minutes of receiving multiple 911 calls, Houston Police Department officers converged on the Oxford Street apartment. The first responding units secured the scene while paramedics tended to the victims. Recognizing the severity of the situation, the shift commander immediately activated the homicide division and issued an all-points bulletin for Jeremiah Jones. Detective Marcus Rivera, the lead investigator assigned to the case, arrived at 11:15 p.m. and established a command post in the building's management office. He coordinated with patrol officers to canvass the neighborhood, collect surveillance footage, and establish a secure perimeter around the crime scene. Given Jones's known history of violence and the brutal nature of the shooting, Rivera requested tactical support. By midnight, specialized units were deployed throughout Houston with Jones's photograph and vehicle description. Police also placed protective details at the hospital where Brittany was receiving treatment, concerned that Jones might attempt to locate her. The apartment told the story of violence that had erupted with little warning. Forensics teams documented the disarray in the living room, the TV torn from the wall mount, scattered DVD cases, and overturned furniture indicated the chaos that preceded the shooting. Investigators recovered 2 shell casings from the bedroom where Kylie had been shot. The trajectory analysis indicated that the shooter had stood in the doorway, firing downward at the child who had likely been sitting or lying on the bed. Blood pattern analysis confirmed that Brittany had been shot first, near the bedroom doorway, before the shooter advanced toward Kylie. Officers collected Brittany's phone, which Jones had dropped during his hasty exit. This device would later provide critical evidence of his threatening messages. They also secured video footage from security cameras at neighboring businesses and residential buildings, which had captured Jones's vehicle circling the area. At the police laboratory, technicians worked through the night processing the evidence. Ballistics experts confirmed that both bullets had been fired from the same weapon, a 9mm handgun. The ammunition matched a type that Jones had been documented purchasing 3 weeks earlier at a local gun shop. DNA analysis from blood samples and touch DNA gathered from the apartment door handle and wall-mounted TV bracket returned matches to Jones, definitively placing him at the scene. His fingerprints were also recovered from a water glass in the kitchen, suggesting he had been in the apartment recently or frequently enough to leave prints that hadn't been cleaned away. Digital forensics specialists extracted the threatening text messages and call logs from Brittany's phone, creating a timeline of escalating harassment. The messages revealed Jones's increasingly aggressive tone in the days leading up to the shooting, including specific threats made just hours before the attack. By sunrise on June 14th, the search for Jones had intensified. His photograph appeared on local news broadcasts and updates were shared across social media platforms. Detectives contacted Jones's known associates and family members, none of whom claimed knowledge of his whereabouts. Cell phone tracking placed Jones's phone in Houston's 3rd Ward neighborhood at 2:13 a.m., though the device was turned off shortly afterward. A gas station surveillance camera captured footage of him purchasing fuel at 3:27 a.m., still wearing the same clothing described by witnesses at the apartment complex. Throughout the morning, tips flowed into the Houston Police Department. Most proved unhelpful, but at 11:42 a.m., a credible sighting came from an apartment complex manager who recognized Jones from news coverage. The manager reported seeing him enter a unit registered to a former girlfriend. The Houston Police Department's SWAT team arrived at the identified location at 1:15 p.m., less than 15 hours after the shooting. They established a perimeter and evacuated neighboring units. After confirming Jones's presence through thermal imaging, they initiated contact via loudspeaker, ordering him to surrender. Jones initially refused to exit, prompting officers to deploy diversionary tactics. After a 45-minute standoff, he emerged with hands raised. The arrest occurred without further violence at 2:03 p.m. on June 14th, with Jones taken immediately to Houston Police Headquarters for processing and questioning. In the days following the arrest, investigators assembled a comprehensive case against Jones. Physical evidence included the recovered firearm found hidden in the apartment where Jones was arrested. Ballistics confirmed it as the weapon used in the shooting. Brittany provided a detailed statement from her hospital bed, recounting the events with clarity despite her injury. Her testimony was corroborated by her 7-year-old daughter, who had witnessed portions of the attack. Child interview specialists worked with the young girl to document her account while minimizing additional trauma. Surveillance videos established Jones's presence at the apartment complex, while cell phone records tracked his movements before and after the crime. The digital evidence, combined with physical findings and eyewitness accounts, created what prosecutors would later describe as an airtight case against Jeremiah Jones. Within 48 hours of his arrest, the Harris County District Attorney's Office filed formal charges against Jeremiah Jones. The gravity of his actions resulted in 2 significant counts: capital murder for the death of Kylie Sorrels and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for the shooting of Brittany Sorrels. The capital murder charge, the most serious in Texas criminal law, was applied specifically because the victim was under 10 years of age, making it a capital offense under Texas Penal Code. The charging documents detailed the premeditated nature of the attack, noting Jones's prior threats and deliberate targeting of the child after injuring her mother. Prosecutors emphasized that Jones had not only endangered the lives of Brittany and Kylie, but had also exposed 2 other young children to extreme trauma by committing these acts in their presence. The comprehensive charging document outlined a pattern of behavior that culminated in what prosecutors described as an act of revenge against a mother through the murder of her child. Jones made his first court appearance on June 16, 2022. The courtroom fell silent as he entered in handcuffs, wearing the standard orange jumpsuit of the Harris County jail system. Judge Maria Jackson presided over the hearing, where prosecutors presented the evidence collected during the initial investigation. Given the severity of the charges and Jones's history of previous bond violations, the prosecution requested that he be held without bail. The defense attorney assigned to Jones attempted to argue for a bail amount, however nominal, but Judge Jackson denied the request, citing both the heinous nature of the alleged crimes and Jones's demonstrated flight risk. Throughout this initial appearance, Jones remained expressionless, making no statements other than confirming his identity. Brittany Sorrels, still recovering from her injuries, was not present in the courtroom, though several family members attended to represent both her and Kylie's memory. The legal process moved forward with methodical precision over the next 3 years. A grand jury indicted Jones in August 2022, solidifying the capital murder and aggravated assault charges. The defense filed numerous motions throughout 2023, attempting to suppress certain evidence and seeking psychological evaluations for their client. By early 2024, pretrial hearings focused on admissibility of evidence, particularly the text messages and prior domestic incident reports. The defense argued these represented prejudicial information, while prosecutors maintained they established clear motive and intent. The trial finally began in January 2025, with jury selection lasting 3 weeks due to the high-profile nature of the case and the potential for a death penalty verdict. Opening statements commenced on February 17, 2025, with prosecutors outlining the timeline of escalating threats that culminated in murder. As of May 2025, the trial continues with testimony from forensic experts and witnesses. Brittany Sorrels delivered powerful testimony in March, recounting the night of the shooting and the months of threatening behavior that preceded it. Her testimony, though emotionally challenging, provided jurors with crucial context for understanding the progression of events. The Harris County District Attorney's Office announced their intention to seek the death penalty in September 2022. This decision, while not unexpected given the circumstances of the case, sparked renewed debate about capital punishment in Texas. Prosecutors cited several aggravating factors in their decision: the age of the victim, the premeditated nature of the crime, and the fact that the murder occurred during the commission of another felony, the aggravated assault of Brittany. They also emphasized Jones's extensive criminal history and his decision to target a child as revenge against her mother. Defense attorneys have mounted challenges to the death penalty pursuit, filing motions regarding Jones's mental health and background. However, pretrial psychological evaluations determined Jones competent to stand trial, and the capital case has proceeded accordingly. The Houston community rallied around the Sorrels family in the aftermath of the tragedy. A GoFundMe campaign established by family friends raised over $85,000 to cover Kylie's funeral expenses and assist with Brittany's medical bills and recovery. Local advocacy groups organized vigils and support gatherings, with hundreds attending a memorial service at Windsor Village Elementary School, where Kylie had been a student. Her basketball teammates from the Police Activities League program attended in uniform, each carrying a single flower to place at a memorial created in the school's courtyard. The Houston Police Department established a trust fund for Brittany's surviving children, recognizing the long-term impact of trauma on the young witnesses to the crime. Officers who had known Kylie through the PAL program served as honorary pallbearers at her funeral, a testament to the connections she had formed in her short life. Kylie's case became a catalyst for examining systemic failures in protecting victims of domestic violence. Community organizers and legal advocates pointed to Jones's release on multiple bonds despite his history of violence as evidence of critical gaps in the system. By late 2022, the Harris County Commissioner's Court had established a task force to review bail practices for cases involving violent offenders with prior domestic violence reports. Their recommendations, published in June 2023, led to policy changes requiring more rigorous review of bond requests when prior threats or violence had been documented. The Houston Area Women's Center expanded its outreach programs in direct response to this case, creating a specialized intervention team focused on families where children might be at risk due to domestic violence threats. This initiative was named Kylie's Shield, in memory of the young victim. The most meaningful legacy of this tragedy has been the establishment of the Kylie Sorrels Foundation, created by Brittany to honor her daughter's memory. The foundation focuses on providing resources to children affected by domestic violence and supporting after-school basketball programs in underserved communities. Windsor Village Elementary dedicated their renovated gymnasium to Kylie in 2024, with a mural depicting her playing basketball adorning the entrance. The Houston Police Department expanded their Police Activities League program, ensuring more children like Kylie would have access to positive mentorship and athletic opportunities. The story of Kylie Sorrels reminds us that behind every headline and statistic is a human life full of potential and promise. Our team believes that sharing these stories can drive meaningful change in how our communities protect vulnerable families. If this documentary has moved you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with others who should hear Kylie's story. Your engagement helps amplify these important conversations about domestic violence prevention and justice system reform. In the comments below, we invite you to share your thoughts on what communities can do to better protect children from domestic violence. What changes would you like to see in how the system responds to threats before they escalate to tragedy? For those who want to support the causes highlighted in this documentary, links to the Kylie Sorrels Foundation and domestic violence prevention organizations are in the description. Thank you for bearing witness to this story, because remembering Kylie means working to ensure no other child faces a similar fate.